Hello and welcome to
The Fantastically Terrible Podcast. Episode 30. Golden Apples in Greek mythology from Hercules to the Trojan War. In Greek mythology, there seems to be a lot of golden apples being tossed around. But they're not the same apples. Some provide immortality, some punishment, others a distraction to win a race, and still others are used to crash a wedding. All lead to tragic consequences. I mean, it's Greek mythology. There's always tragic consequences.
As a side note, we'll do more shows on Greek mythology because there are so many great stories. We'll focus a little bit more on the women who fell victim to the gods. We'll also point out just how petty and awful the Olympians were. And whenever possible, we'll show you why Zeus was a maniacal egomaniac who just couldn't keep it in his pants.
For today, we'll look at 3 absolutely legendary stories from Greek mythology that promptly feature golden apples.
Number 1, Heracles and the Garden of Hesperides. We're going to refer to Heracles as Hercules for the rest of the episode, just to keep things nice and easy. Number 2, Atalanta, the swift-footed huntress. And number 3, the golden apple of discord, which eventually led to the Trojan War. First off, Hercules and the golden apples and the Garden of Hesperides. Who were the Hesperides? They were nymphs and their father was Atlas. We know Atlas as the huge titan we see who has to hold up the heavens, the punishment by Zeus after the Titanomachy. The Titanomachy, or the Battle of the Titans, or the Battle of the Gods, was an epic battle to decide which generation of gods would have dominion over the universe. It ended in victory for the Olympians. We'll have to do a show on the Titanomachy for many reasons, including that I like to say Titanomachy. Back to the golden apples. The famed fruit that granted immortality grew in the garden located in one of Hera's orchards in an inaccessible spot near the western edge of the world. The golden apples were a wedding gift to Hera from Gaia. The nymphs looked after the garden, which was also protected by a giant serpent-like dragon named Ladon. Enough backstory. Let's move on to Hercules. For his 11th labor, Hercules was sent to the garden to retrieve 3 golden apples for King Eurystheus, who is an absolutely terrible person that kept sending Hercules on impossible tasks, hoping he would be killed, but each time Hercules succeeded. The exact location of the garden and the apples was unknown, and Hercules had to pry the information from Nereus, the old man of the sea. Along the way, he also encountered and freed Prometheus, who offered him some very helpful advice. Do not pick the golden apples yourself. Ask Atlas to do it. As another side note, we'll definitely do a show on Prometheus because he's one of my favorites.
But now he had to fight the giant serpent dragon called Ladon, who protected the tree. So Hercules took out his big guns and went to work killing yet another legendary creature. As you can imagine, the battle was epic. After catching his breath, Hercules remembered Prometheus' warning about not taking the apples himself. He found Atlas holding up the heavens. Hercules told Atlas...
It's hard to miss, right?
Yeah, it's hard to miss. Hercules told Atlas his story and asked the old titan if he could steal the apples for him. In the meantime, Hercules would take the load. Atlas's eyes widened and filled with joy. He jumped at the chance to literally get the burden of the world off his back and agreed. Maybe he even let out a Homer Simpson. Woohoo! Atlas stole the apples and then, of course, had second thoughts. I mean, can you blame him?
Can't blame him.
No. Atlas decided he'd leave Hercules right where he was. See ya, wouldn't want to be ya.
Smell you later.
Now, Hercules had to think fast. Showing that he had brains and brawn, he convinced Atlas to allow him one small comfort. He needed to adjust his clothes one last time, especially on his shoulders, to alleviate some of the pain. Plus, having a forever wedgie was something we can all sympathize with.
We can definitely sympathize with that.
Yeah, that's uncomfortable. Atlas finally agreed to briefly take the weight of the heavens back, and then immediately regretted it.
Don't.
As soon as he was free, Hercules took the golden apples and hightailed it out of there.
But wait, what happened to the golden apples after Hercules returned them to King Euryalus? I mean King Eurystheus.
All that hard work, and they ended up back in Hera's garden. Wah, wah.
Number 2, Atalanta and the Golden Apples. If you thought all adventure-seeking heroes in Greek mythology were men, you, my friend, would be wrong. The story of Atalanta breaks the mold. She didn't go by stereotypes and didn't let anyone tell her who she was. She was 100% awesome. And she ties nicely into our golden apple theme as well. From the moment she was born, Atalanta had to deal with misogyny. Her father wanted a baby boy, but when his wife gave birth to a girl, he decided to get rid of her. He had a servant take her up to the mountain in the middle of the night and left her there to die. Fortunately, a bear came across the crying baby. Instead of eating her, her maternal instincts kicked in. She looked after Atalanta and even tried to feed her, eventually succeeding. And since this is Greek mythology, we can imagine that the hand of the gods was helping out the little baby as well. Artemis was the god of the hunt, wild animals, chastity, and the protector of young women. So she intervened to make sure that the baby didn't die. Not long after, hunters found the bear and killed her. Then they discovered the baby. So the small hunting tribe took her back to their village and raised her as their own. At a young age, Atalanta showed her amazing hunting skills, pinpoint accuracy, and archery skills. She was faster than any other man, adult or child. She grew up without a father or a brother and was able to live in the village and perfect her hunting skills, moving silently through the forest. She modeled herself after Artemis and pledged to stay a virgin. She also received an oracle's warning that if she married, it would lead to disaster. So she was happy to do whatever she wanted and not get involved with any men. Her stealth, wit, and savvy came into full view one day when 2 centaurs attempted to rape her in the forest. They didn't even get near her. She quickly let her arrows fly and killed them before they knew what happened. Nice sound effects. So let's jump forward a little bit to the hunt of the Caledonian boar. Every year after the harvest, King Oeneus of Aetolia would make sacrifices to the gods, offering them a percentage of the harvest. However, one year he forgot to make a sacrifice to Artemis, who was infuriated. In normal Olympian god fashion, she completely overreacted and sent a boar of monstrous size to terrorize the population, causing death and devastation wherever it went. King Oeneus sent word to every corner of the ancient world, asking all skilled hunters to come and help kill the boar. In return, they could keep the animal's pelt and tusks and bragging rights. Oeneus' own son Meleager and other young heroes from other famous myths like Theseus, Peleus, Castor, Pollux, and more joined in the hunt. But the problem for Atalanta was always the same. The men did not want to hunt with a woman. Atalanta insisted she had the skills and they knew it, but they refused. No way would they hunt with a woman. Ultimately, Meleager was able to convince his father, King Oeneus, and eventually the others allowed her to join. They hated it, but kept their grumbling complaints to a low simmer. Plus, Meleager found the beautiful and independent woman most alluring, so let's not make him out to be the feminist of his day. Anyhow, for the next few days, the men mostly drank and had fun, while Atalanta studied the forest and learned her environment. When the hunt finally started, she went her own way. The giant boar attacked a group of the hunters, killing a few of them and pinning down others. Calm and cool as always, Atalanta let her arrow fly, and as always, hit her target. The arrow buried itself deep into the boar, which ran squealing and full of rage. More hunters appeared now that it was injured, throwing javelins and sometimes hitting the boar, sometimes hitting one of the other hunters. It was a bloodbath. Boar versus man gored by boar, innards out. It was a mess. On and on it went until Meleager finally hit the boar with a javelin and then followed it with the thrust of his spear. Now it was over. Meleager killed the monster. After inspecting the dead animal, Meleager saw Atalanta's arrow. He declared that it was her arrow that drew first blood, and it would have been fatal if the others didn't intervene. He presented the prized pelt and tusks to her, the victor. All of the other men absolutely objected. It's bad enough they had to hunt with her, but now she was not going to be declared the victor of the Caledonian hunt, even though the proof was right there. Atalanta saw where things were going, took her prize, and disappeared into the forest.
When she arrived in her village, she got some shocking news. Her real father, the one who had abandoned her to die when, oh no, she was a girl, came to take her back. Now that she was a legendary hero, perhaps she was worthy of him.
Aw, that's so nice of him.
Daddy's little girl.
Yeah.
She was forgiven for not being a man.
Wasn't that good?
She hesitantly accepted. Try as he might, her father couldn't control her. She went where she wanted and when she wanted. The one rule he would not budge on was that she had to get married. She agreed, but with a couple of rules. Her father was desperate enough to agree. What's a patriarch to do? It's not like thousands of years from now, people will read about a woman who could outrun any man and hunt better than anyone. Like that would ever happen.
Exactly.
Her rules were simple. The man that could best her in a foot race could marry her. Any man that lost would die by her hand. Her father agreed because why not? This was ancient Greece, and men regularly did heroically stupid things to trap women in a loveless marriage.
So you can marry me if you beat me, and if you don't, I kill you.
That's
very Greek. Or ancient Greek, I should say.
Well, I would say that she's actually setting it up that somebody who's worthy of her will try. If you're not going to bother.
True.
So,
a little like the Celtic myths.
A little
but
bit.
We'll do those another day. Okay, keep going.
And so the race was on. The suitors came and heads began to roll. She tried to make things more challenging for herself by giving them a head start, but they always lost. Things continued like this for quite some time until there was one potential husband,
victim.
Melanion fell in love with Atalanta. I'm not sure if it was her beauty, brain, skill, the way she rejected men, or how she killed them afterward that attracted him most, but he was smitten.
He was smitten. But what about the golden apples? Where are those immortally delicious apples?
I'm getting there right now. Melanion knew he could never beat her in a race, so he got down on his knees and prayed to Aphrodite, the goddess of love, for help. Perhaps she had a weakness for hopeless causes, or perhaps she was bored. Either way, she decided to help. She gave him 3 golden apples and a plan. In return, Melanion was to sacrifice to Aphrodite. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. So Melanion tossed his his hat in the ring. As usual, Atalanta gave him a big head start, but she easily caught up with him. That's when Melanion tossed the first apple at her feet. The sight of the golden apple was irresistible. Maybe it was too valuable to resist, or maybe a little bit of Aphrodite's magic. But she stopped to pick it up. No worries, since she knew that she could make up the time. Soon enough, she caught up again with Melanion, so he threw the second apple, this time further to the side. Atalanta couldn't resist and ran after the apple. Even though she lost time retrieving the apple, she still managed to catch up to Melanion. Just as she was about to pass him and reach the finish line, he dropped the final golden apple. And when she went after the golden distraction and returned, she almost won. But Melanion reached the finish line just ahead of her. He won. They were soon married, and from what I've read, they were happy together. Perhaps too happy, because it's Greek mythology. And because Melanion made one tiny life-changing mistake, Yes, there's always that one thing you forget. He forgot to make a sacrifice to Aphrodite.
This was a big mistake, though.
Big mistake.
Yeah.
Big mistake.
This
was
really
bad.
Yeah.
This was bad. You don't want to piss off an Olympian. I mean, look at Greek mythology. It's filled with the bravest heroes and the pettiest revenge stories you'll ever read. So Aphrodite decided to fill Milanion and Atalanta with an overwhelming lust, just as they were passing a temple to Zeus or Sybil, depending on the version you read. They shared a moment of passion right there, which infuriated the god, whether Zeus or Sybil, and they were turned into lions. This might not seem so bad considering Atalanta loves nature and to hunt. However, I read on Wikipedia that the Greeks believed that lions could not mate with other lions, but only with leopards.
Very strange thing to believe, but okay.
It means there were no lions.
Yeah,
There,
that's true.
I think an African would have said, you guys are crazy. So, the unlikely pair who somehow found happiness were cursed to live apart. How do you like them apples?
That was terrible, but awesome.
Or I should say more Boston. How you like them apples?
Exactly. Our third and final story comes from the golden apple of discord, which eventually led to the Trojan War. One day Zeus was feeling generous and held a wedding ceremony for the future parents of Achilles, Peleus and Thetis. If Peleus sounds familiar, he was one of the hunters in our previous Atalanta story. Everyone was invited except Eris, the goddess of discord. On the one hand, we can understand Zeus not wanting to invite the one goddess who is going to cause trouble, especially at a wedding. On the other hand, as we just mentioned, the gods are notoriously petty and practically live for revenge. So it was that Eris devised a plan to get back at the gods for snubbing her. She arrived at the party carrying a golden apple picked from the garden from our first story. For maximum effect, she tossed the apple into the crowd of people. The apple read, "To the fairest one." Never had something so simple caused so much death and heartache. Eris definitely lived up to her name of discord. In an embarrassing display, Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite all reached for the apple, thinking they were the fairest. Awkward. The three goddesses immediately went to Zeus to resolve the dispute. He needed to judge who was the fairest, and he needed to do it now. Zeus, being the sly old dog that he was, knew full well when not to piss off fellow gods, and found a way to squirm out of his predicament. He claimed to be biased, but said he knew a man named Paris from Troy who could judge them, and could offer an unbiased opinion. This begins the story of what is known as the Judgment of Paris. Paris now had to judge between the three beautiful goddesses. Zeus laughed at the man who agreed to it. What a noob! Damned if you do, and absolutely damned if you don't.
Zeus sent Hermes with the goddesses to meet Paris, but he was unable to make a decision. So each one individually tried to bribe Paris as he looked them up and down. Hera and Athena made tempting offers, but Aphrodite offered him the world's most beautiful woman, Helen of Sparta.
Ding, 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 did it ring any bells?
Paris was intrigued, but noted that Helen was already married to a Greek king, Menelaus. When Aphrodite told him she'd take care of everything, Paris accepted her offer and awarded the golden apple to her. Aphrodite then delivered on her end of the bargain. In Greek mythology, there are always multiple versions. Some say that Helen and Paris fell in love and eloped, while others say Aphrodite used her powers to help Paris kidnap her and take her to Troy. Either way, Helen's husband, Menelaus, seeing his wife and mother of his children taken to Troy, he convinced his brother, Agamemnon, to lead an expedition to retrieve her. Aphrodite, Ares, Apollo, and Zeus took the side of the Trojans. Of course, Athena, Hera, as well as Poseidon, Hermes, Hephaestus, and Thetis all sided with the Greeks. The Trojan War lasted 10 years and caused countless deaths. Note to self, Don't ever make a deal with an Olympian or piss one of them off. You'll definitely regret it. In summary, the apples are solid gold, beautiful to behold and grant immortality. What's not to love? All three of these stories make it painfully clear that the golden apples are only for the gods. Only they can give them away or promptly take them back whenever they please.
And that's life. Immortality ain't for the mortals.
You don't get them apples.
I liked your solution for Paris. What was it?
My solution, I always thought of this since I was a kid. Maybe it's a little bit of the Solomon thing. Was if he could have split up the apple in 3 portions.
And I think maybe he should have taken it to
Hephaestus,
since he was great with metals and working with all that. And maybe he could slice it in 3.
Slice it in 3.
A piece for all of them. And what could they do?
That'd still torture him.
They would. He would never end up well.
He was totally, once a god talks to you, I think that still holds true in the Mediterranean. If you get good luck, growing up with a Spanish mom, good luck equally means then the other shoe's going to drop at some point.
If something good happens, you're always in fear of the equal and opposite bad happening.
Right, and if something bad happens, even something worse is going to happen. So you never win in the Mediterranean.
You never get double good, but you always get double bad.
That's right, so you never get to enjoy it. The Fantastically Terrible Character or creature this week is Immortality. Or more specifically, 3 mythological ways to become immortal. But as you'll see, it never works out.
Number 1. You can anger a Greek god and be punished for eternity. It's not the best way to spend forever, but it was true for the likes of Sisyphus, stuck rolling the boulder up a hill every day only to have it roll back down every night. There was King Ixion, who was punished by being strapped to a flaming wheel forever. And of course, Atlas, who we mentioned earlier, who was condemned to hold up the heavens until the end of time.
Number 2. In Japanese mythology, you can eat a mermaid-like creature known as the ningo. I say mermaid-like because it's a cross between a monkey and a carp. In one legend,
not like a Disney movie.
Right. In one legend, a girl ate ningu meat that her father had accidentally brought home. Unfortunately, her immortality was a curse. After seeing husbands and children die of old age, while she remained. To relieve her sadness, she devoted her life to Buddha and became a nun. Perhaps because of her holiness, she was finally allowed to die at the tender age of 800.
Just a baby face.
Just baby face. Número 3.
Enoch is a biblical figure that is a descendant of Adam and lived before Noah and the Great Flood. Enoch is only mentioned twice in the Bible, in Genesis and Hebrews. It says Enoch lived for 365 years before he was taken by God. Now, if you think that's a long time, hang on to your hat. His son Methuselah lived to be 969. After Methuselah was born, Genesis says that Enoch walked with God, and he was no more, for God took him. This is interpreted to mean that God was pleased with Enoch, spared him death, and allowed him to enter heaven alive. In other words, immortality.
And if you ever wonder what happened after immortality, we can take a look at the Book of Enoch, especially 3 Enoch. Quote, "These recount how Enoch was taken up to heaven and was appointed guardian of all the celestial treasures, chief of the archangels, and the immediate attendant to the throne of God. He was subsequently taught all the secrets and mysteries, and with all the angels at his back, fulfills of his own accord whatever comes out of the mouth of God, executing his decrees."
And his decrees meaning God's.
God's. Much esoteric literature like the 3 Enoch identifies Enoch as Metatron.
I love that.
Not to be confused with Megatron from Transformers.
That's right. Metatron, the angel.
Yes, the angel which communicates God's word. In consequence, Enoch was seen by this literature and the rabbinic Kabbalah of Jewish mysticism as having been the one which communicated God's revelation to Moses.
Ah,
In particular, the dictator of the Book of Jubilees.
interesting. I didn't realize that.
Yes, actually, the Book of Enoch was very important. It was actually used by all three traditions. But
Yeah, it's
a while
not
back,
a-
it stopped. They stopped doing that. They stopped.
And the
referring
oldest
to it.
version is from Ethiopia,
That's
ancient
right.
Ethiopia, and then there's two others. None of them are official texts in the Jewish Bible or the in the Talmud or the Christian Bible.
But they were used heavily. It was used heavily at one
Yeah, and
point.
people refer to this a lot now.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so there we go. Immortality from God himself.
Yes. Actually, he worked out pretty good compared to the Greeks.
Yeah, Enoch became an angel
He became Metatron.
at the right hand of God. Much better than immortality with the Greek gods.
It's my transforming sound.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Metatron, the angel. That's it for today. 7 Robots, the Fantastically Terrible podcast is by Miguel Guerra and Suzy Diaz and written by Suzy.
We want to thank everyone for listening. If you enjoy our show, that's fantastic. If you haven't subscribed or followed us yet, please do. It helps us out with our statistics on iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube. Honestly, we don't know what you're thinking unless you let us know. So please like the episode or even leave a comment and say hello. We'd love to hear from you. For more information on the episode, including links to everything we reference, please visit our website at www.7robots.com/podcast.
And remember to check out Ghost Metal. Our free comic on Webtoon and now on Tapas. Read each week as we serve you up bite-sized sci-fi and horror stories on a macabre menu of detestable delights. A new episode is up every Friday for your abhorrent amusement. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.